across the planet. This is Heather Lockett with Lasting Conversations, and I'm so excited to be with this amazing couple all the way in Malaysia. We have Kathleen Plumley and Norm Bour. Hey guys.
Good morning. Good evening.
Good morning, good evening. It's absolutely wild that it's about the end of the day here in Florida and it's already tomorrow across the world. So this is what I love. And Norm and Kathleen are prolific world travelers. They have a whole website and a community, travelyounger.com, and the whole digital nomads, the whole lifestyle. And so I'm so excited that they have joined me today for this very conversation that's going to hit on so many different levels, especially as I myself, with Lasting Conversations, is about to jump off the next cliff and start traveling myself. And I don't know what it looks like, but this is where I know I'm in very capable hands. So what I wanted to talk about, and you guys are authors and writers and have podcasts and have lived life fully and are still doing that, and you're paving the way for the rest of us to know you can take that leap. There is no age limit. You can afford it. I want to get into that because that's always our usual impediment. We say, well, yeah, but, and we throw up the yeah buts to ourselves, and it is not too difficult. So those are part of your mantras. It's never too old. You can afford it, and it's not that difficult. That's not to say that there aren't bumps along the way and, crazy things can happen and we get sidetracked. But the first thing I want to talk about, because in the beginning, it's time to leave our comfort zones. So let's talk about that. And the part of that I'm going to say is we have been connected by a mutual friend and Jane, and that her husband, Dave, has passed away a year ago already. And that Norm, you and Dave were almost childhood friends. You were high school friends. So in talking about life and community and the things that we think are tethering us to certain locations, that's what I also want to talk about in terms of you have your thread of community and your deep well of friendships and family. And then life happens and it's time to move on. So welcome, and just start sharing. The microphone is yours.
And sometimes even you move on before something happens.
That's right.
You were saying we're drawn. For me, I've been drawn to travel like this since I was a small child. So when we met, and he said to me within the first couple of weeks of us meeting, I need to let you know I never traveled much, but about 2 years ago, I went to Europe and I've decided maybe I just want to get out of the country and travel more around the world. And I'm like, you've met your match. Call anybody that knows me and they will tell you that's all I've ever said. I'm going to live in this country. I'm going to live in this country. And I knew it somewhere deep inside of me. I just didn't know how it was going to happen. And I had gone through a divorce and I really wasn't in a financial position that I thought I could do this on my own. So you don't know when that's going to happen. It doesn't take necessarily, where you've
This major life-changing, whatever.
Yes, it doesn't. Well, it sort of did for us because we met and but still, it doesn't always take that. And for me, I had just gone through a divorce, so I had already downsized and left everything in Florida. So I pretty much didn't have a lot of possessions besides my car, my clothes, and some pieces of furniture. He, on the other hand, had to, get rid of his apartment and it was a little more difficult for him.
Yeah, I mean, I was married for 27 years, and in 2013 went through a divorce and left my house and had the big 4-bedroom house with the nice car and the 3-car garage and all that, and became a minimalist to the nth degree. And so I only acquired what I needed to as a single man. And initially that was nothing because I shared a room. I rented a room from someone else, and then I got my own apartment. But still, I only got what I needed to. And so, when we met and I said, I see something here, you see something here, but if traveling is something that's not interesting to you, I want you to know this is something I'm interested in pursuing. It was still a random thought at that time. And she said, yeah, you got the right girl. I'm like, all right, cool. And it just so happens that we met November 17th of 2017. And I already had a trip booked to Barcelona, Spain for basically almost 2 months down the road. And long story short, we ended up going together. I had to make that decision. Do I want to ask this new woman in my life to travel with me internationally who we didn't even know each other? And that's kind of how the whole travel thing started. But I want to go back to what you said about community, because that really struck a chord for me. When we're young or younger, we think that things are going to remain the same for a certain period of time. And we have our families and we have our childhood friends, and then we transition into high school and the young adulthood, and we have our friends, and nothing remains stable in life.
It's all fluid.
All fluid. Our friends come and go. I mean, I have a few friends that I still have from my childhood, but not very many. And so the only thing you can depend on is your capabilities and your ability to be able to transition healthfully without trying to attach yourself to the past. I love that expression, you can't go home again, because for anyone who is of our age, and if we go back to those hometowns or the towns or the homes that we used to live in, we look at it and we go, oh my gosh, look how different it is. I can't believe that home was so small. It felt like a mansion at that time.
And I think something that we've learned after 6 years of travel is this is home. Wherever we are, it's home. You know, if it's a small room in Ecuador, and we're getting up to go from Machu Picchu, and it's just this little 2-bed and 2 nightstands, that's home.
Yeah.
If we're in a big apartment and have 2 bedrooms and 2 baths, that's home. If we're in a tent, which we haven't been, but it doesn't matter. You know, we're going home.
Yeah. We have
Because
several
home
homes.
is where, and then people say that, home's where your heart is.
Yeah.
And when you travel like we do and your heart is about this, that's home.
When we came to Asia, this was a 1-year experiment. I didn't think it was going to be 1 year, but she did.
I did.
I thought it was going to be 6 months, 12 months, 6 months, 9 months.
He was saying 3.
Yeah, I mean, our first experience with Asia was January of 2020, just as the new decade was starting, before COVID ever reared its ugly head. And our first stop was in Bangkok, Thailand, which is a megatropolis with 22 million people, and it like totally blew me away.
The culture
Not in a
shock.
good way.
Yeah, the pollution, the culture shock.
Yeah.
It was our beginning of coming into Asia.
Yeah.
So I loved it. He did not.
Yeah, and so before we got here, we had 2 concerns, both of which were unfounded. The humidity, which has been manageable, probably not as bad as Florida,
Yeah.
probably not as bad as Texas or a lot of the southern states, and bugs, specifically mosquitoes, because we have horrible mosquito problems when we lived in Mexico. But neither of those have been an issue, and our 1-year experiment is now coming to an end. But we came over here with the intention of where are our homes? Because we wanted to find 4 different places that we could go to for 90 days at a time, because that's a typical
For
visa
later.
period.
For later.
Yeah.
For later. We wanted to prepare for
Yeah.
later.
Because we aren't looking for a specific second home, and that's a whole other conversation. A lot of people, when they decide to make this big step, they want a second home. They're going to one place and they want to live there. And in many cases, they don't even investigate other options. And again, that's a whole other transition we can get into.
So the Malaysia piece, the Asia piece, have you been over there at least off and on these last 4 years? Or this has been 2024 experiment?
Yeah, we
As
came
you're
over
talking
to
about.
Asia a year ago.
Okay.
We had been in Europe and we decided to come to Asia and explore it because I wanted to see if he could learn to love it like I did, because I really loved it. And we went to Paris to come back to the United States to see my kids. We ended up getting married, and
Did you
and
get
then-
married in Paris or
We got-
in the States?
yeah, we got
United
married in
States.
the United States with my kid. Nice little park. It was very simple. And then we went back to Hawaii because he had a timeshare he wanted to show me that I'd never seen. And then we went from Hawaii, we caught a one-way repositioning cruise to Australia, which allowed us to stop in Tahiti and New Zealand and Auckland and just really have a new experience. And that brought us over to Asia. So we've been here since last
November
beginning of
2023. And we've been to 4 or 5 different countries, and truly we've loved every one.
Right.
Some we've loved more than others, and some we still need to experience more to see what other cities, like we're in the city of Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, which is a big city, but not an overwhelming city like a Bangkok or like a Tokyo or something like that.
I love it.
And yeah, she loves it because you can walk places and you can shop and you can stay inside tunnels and not have to be exposed to the outside temperatures. But, you
So
know,
I get my exercise without having to be sweating everywhere.
yeah, we recognized when we first started back in 2019, this was our life plan. We had no intention at that time, nor do we now, of returning to the US. So we knew this was a one-way trip outside the US. The question is where do we go? How long do we stay? And what's going to resonate with us? And we love Eastern Europe, the Balkan countries.
Yeah.
And the two things that drive us are temperature and finances and budget. And we have found lots of places, ladies and gentlemen, in the world where you can definitely afford to live far more cheaply than the United States
And well,
and a much more healthy lifestyle, because this travel keeps our minds active, keeps our minds young.
but with that being said, this lifestyle is not for everyone. Our lifestyle is all about learning to let go, flow, and choose to be happy. That has become my mantra. I wrote a little book. I've never done anything with it, but that's really what I had to do the whole first year, because you have got to change your mindset. You have got to learn the things that you thought were important, the things that matter to you. I mean, honestly, we've been through it all. No water coming out of the showers, a hard bed, the air conditioning breaks and somebody doesn't want to come fix it. It doesn't matter. It's just a whole different lifestyle. And you have to be willing to go with that flow and recognize that you accept all of it. And when you do that and you let go of all of, I need this, I need this, I need this, we literally travel out of one big backpack on our back, each of us, and one bag. That's all we own. And you recognize that you don't need stuff. You don't need it. We both had the big home. We've been very blessed. We both had that. And maybe because we had it, it makes it easier to no longer have it, but it's not valuable. I tell people in my previous marriage, I was fortunate to be in a position where I traveled in 5-star hotels all the time and a lot. I never had near as much fun or near as much understanding of culture and people and food as we do in our lifestyle. So this is definitely not for the faint of heart. You have to really want to do this.
Yeah.
But if you do, it is by far the most amazing experience and adventure of your life. And for us, it is our life.
Yeah,
We
totally.
plan to do this till we can't do it anymore.
Pretty much.
And forgive my voice, I've got that frog.
No, you guys sound great. I mean, and it's almost like I don't know where to start again. But so, Norm, you have a book called Nomadic Life for All Ages.
I do.
Walk us through. We could start with the age thing again. And one of the previous guests, Andy Lyons, has her own show literally called Don't Be Caged by Your Age, because we have these self-proclaimed cages. But I loved what you had said on your website somewhere about that part of the impetus or cue were from the millennials, because I know the younger generation, and I know this is going to wind into a practical question. They have been doing van life. The notion of van life has been kickstarted by a younger generation for sure. All the while, we know that the retirees have started to say, well, they're younger, right? So I'm in my young 60s. You guys, have you even hit higher 60s or 70?
I'll be 72 in December.
70 on me.
See, and then we get to reverse age. So the notion of what we have originally thought of as retirement, and then quite honestly, dying in our 70s doesn't exist. Some people do, God bless them, but that there is a huge new generation of 100, 120. Like, this is the new middle age.
Yes.
And we get to choose now what. And part of that, I'll get into the financial, how we can afford this, but then it can happen because somehow the universe has our back. But so tell us about your first cue from the millennials and the people that you've met along the way. Are they a combination of the older generation, younger? Who have you noticed are on maybe their own spiritual journey and it's just a little bit of a walkabout versus those who have literally taken a leap? Because it seems I won't even say I'm at that juncture to say, well, I'm never coming back to the States. All of this in due time. I'm loving that it's going to be something new and to brush up on languages and to take lasting conversations, which is the whole thing is bigger than me, to make it bigger than me, do the global thing, and have the that kind of a shakeup to be part of a broader planet together. So
Heather, we all have our own motivations for what we do in life, not just travel.
Right.
It's somewhat self-serving because we got to find what we want to do. As Kat always
Right.
said, tell me what you want. If you don't ask what you want, you're not going to get what you want. In my particular case, as a baby boomer, I bought into the whole work your ass off your whole life, retire when
Yep.
you're a certain age. And my career really started in my mid-20s in real estate. And I was in real estate for several decades in Southern California, where real estate there is a kind of a game because you weather the ups and down cycles of appreciation and recession. And
Right.
you know, you ideally want to buy when it's low and sell when it's high. And unfortunately, when you're in the game, you don't always get to participate in that game because my income fluctuated dramatically. And I was able to accumulate money over the years, but never to what I thought I was going to accumulate when I was in my 20s, when I had this grandiose vision of retiring with this and with that, the next thing, because that's the American dream. You want to quote
Well,
unquote.
part of, I'm sorry, it's sort of blurting in about if part of the game is chasing the carrot. Did you feel that you were
Chasing the carrot.
constantly chasing a carrot that
Sure,
may or may
yeah.
not ever land?
And for decades, even before our generation, you work hard,
Yeah.
you're 65 and you go play golf or you garden or you
Right.
visit your friends, and then you hopefully die a happy person.
I think it's different for men and women too. I was raised in Ohio and I was raised as women are not as, they're not looked at as same as men are. I wasn't able to go to college. I went to college on my own, joined the army so that I could actually go to college. But in my household, you know, the boys got to do things the girls needed to do. So I didn't
Right.
have the succeed, make money. I had more of the expected someone to take care of me. Ha ha ha. Yeah, that doesn't work.
And I was driven by money as a young real estate person in a very affluent industry that I didn't necessarily get to participate in Southern California. I saw people making lots more money than me. And I wanted my share because that's the way it is as an entrepreneur for many, many years. And so I weathered the ebbs and flows of the industry. And then, of course, the recession of 2008 happened, and that slammed me into a wall like so many other people. And over the next 4 years, it all disappeared. My income went from substantial to non-existent. My house soon went by the wayside, my marriage, my investments, my real estate portfolio. And here I was at the age of 58, 59. And I'm asking myself, all right, so what does the rest of my life look like? And what do I want to do with the rest of my life? And I hadn't a clue. When I got divorced in 2013, I had less than nothing, but I know I wanted fun. I know I wanted laughter. I know I wanted adventure, and I know I wanted love. And it just so happens that I found a niche industry where I was able to position myself fairly well. And I wrote for a magazine and I started a podcast. But more importantly, I ended up being a speaker in that niche industry. And I was always out pitching myself to be a speaker at different events, including international events. So my life transition happened in the summer of 2016 when I was invited to speak at 3 different events in Europe. Now, mind you, I had been to Europe one time, and that was in like 1996 when my ex-wife and I chaperoned our daughter. She was in a Latin class, and her Latin teacher took her and about 20 other kids to Italy. And it was a very highly escorted trip, you know, from one city to the next city. And I loved Italy, but it didn't really like compel me to say, I got to come back here. But in 2016, I came to Europe. I'm 62 years old and I am scared shitless because I get out of the airport in Amsterdam. I'm looking at the sign of where to go, and all the letters of all the cities are 15 letters long. And I'm trying to figure out how to negotiate to the hotel. And I'm fairly technologically savvy with this little sucker. And this is the best thing that travel ever invented. But long story short, over the course of the 19 days, I was in Amsterdam and Warsaw and Ireland and Prague and all that. And I'm like trepidatious. And meanwhile, these kids they're going through turnstiles and they got their earphones on and they're going into subways and they're going into airports. And they're like, they look like experts. I need to travel like them because they make it look so flippin' easy. And here I am scared. So when I came back, I had a conversation with a fellow writer who was in her mid-20s. And I said, you go everywhere and I can't figure out how you do it, how you afford it. And so effortlessly. So she kind of gave me some insight. And I said to myself, I need to travel like the millennials because they are the new generation. And it just so happens that I'd done a lot of research on the generational differences from a business standpoint. A lot of baby boomers have millennial bosses. And that's a real real ripe conversation because that doesn't work so well. And so I was familiar with the way the millennials thought, but I didn't know how the millennials travel. But the truth is, they're fearless. They're fearless. They'll stay at a hospital that looks like crap. They'll go on buses that, you know, look like they barely are going to make it. But meanwhile, people, when they get older, we have more fear because we know of the danger. I know when I was in my 20s, I thought I was invulnerable. I was Superman and I would never get hurt. And 2 shoulder breaks later, you find that you can get hurt.
And when you're older, I think that you have become accustomed to a lifestyle. And if you're not willing to give up that lifestyle, then yes, this could be very expensive. I mean, if you want to travel like you're accustomed to when you're
As a
holding down a
tourist.
job as a tourist, it's not going to work.
Right,
We're travelers. Travelers are way different than tourists.
right.
We see stuff, we go to places, but we do it much differently. And we don't have to have all the wonderful stuff. You know, we stay at Airbnbs, we stay at booking.com, we stay at Agoda, we stay at Pantheons. And like I said, we stay at really nice places. And because of his writing, we have been really blessed to be able to stay at some really amazing 6-star hotels because the doors have opened up for us. So we have both, but we're willing and we accept both of those. We're not, oh my gosh, I can't stay here. There have been places that we pulled up in front of in our Uber or a bus or whatever, walked over and I went, oh, there's no way. There's absolutely no way I can stay here, especially when we first started. And we would walk into this horrible looking neighborhood and there would be this beautifully nice, clean, very amazing place. Now, was it a 5-star hotel? No, but it was absolutely perfect for what we needed. It was comfortable. It was clean. There were no bugs. You know, I think you have to be willing to give up the perception of what's important to you to be able to get a much deeper, for me, spiritual, you know, coming to know who you are yourself, learning about your relationship and making it grow stronger, connecting with other people and seeing that we are truly all connected.
Yeah.
And we see that. Living in one country, you are not privy to all the other ideas outside of what you've been taught within your own system.
Yeah.
And we feel blessed to be able to have been able to do that.
You know, you alluded to the ages of the people that we meet. We meet people from all ages, including some older than us, but not very many.
Right.
I would say mostly in their 20s and 30s. And when we've met kids, I'm going to call them kids because anyone under 30 is a kid to us. We've met kids in their young 20s who are traveling alone, especially a lot of females. And I'm like, God bless you. Because when I was that age as a male, I don't know if I would have had the confidence and as a female to be able to do that. Geez.
And a lot of older female women.
A lot of
that
older
blows me away. Women my age.
You will be with good company, by the way.
Will. There
There's
are
a lot of women in their 50s, a lot of women in their 60s.
so many.
Yeah.
So many.
Lots, because they realize that they don't need a man to help them do this. They've maybe come out of a marriage or a divorce, and now it's like for them to find themselves to bloom, like eat, pray, love.
But when you also meet these people, whether they're old or young, if they're doing what we're doing, there is no generation gap.
No,
We connect all levels
We
with
really
the
do.
young. In fact, the young seem to really enjoy
they
it.
do.
They just
They think
love.
we're cool.
They think we're cool. They want to be able to do it when they're
Yeah.
our age. They're excited. They want to learn more from us.
They want us to talk to their parents.
Yes.
Because their parents are sitting home watching TV.
Yeah, yeah. So we have so much fun. We meet
Yeah.
so many different people
Yeah.
who are just really enjoying this and more than happy to discuss. This is how we learn.
Yeah.
By all the people we meet, they've been here, we've been there. We talk about this was good. This is what happened over here. This is our perception. It may be different for you, but this is what we've also heard from some other people as well. And that's how we end up going to certain places.
Yeah.
Because we'll hear maybe 3 times in a row, like, you know, we've been struggling with India for a long time.
A long time.
A long time, from the beginning. I really don't care about going to India, and I really don't care about going to South America. If we get there, great, but it wasn't really high on my list. Well,
Okay.
we now went to South America. He went to Ecuador. Well, I went to see my grandbaby, new grandbaby. And then I went to Peru and we went to Machu Picchu, and I'm extremely happy. The experience was amazing. Not necessarily my cup of tea, South America. What was the other thing I was going to say? I lost my train of thought. There are most places we have absolutely loved. There's only a few places
Yeah.
that we've had, only a few, because I've been to about 54 countries now.
We're dominating the conversation, so don't want to.
No, well, this is the conversation. So Kathleen, you just said you've been to 54 countries, and Norm, how many?
About the
have-
same.
About the
14
same.
together.
We've
We've
been
been
43
43 together.
and about the same separately.
Yeah, yeah,
But different countries.
right.
In different countries.
I've been to
So this-
Scandinavia, he's not. He's been to Iceland, I've not.
I'm in the Dubai.
Well, okay, so now I have two questions at the same time. Kathleen, I was going to ask, what is your, did you have a professional background? Norm talked about his and the writing and all of
I
that.
was a nurse.
A what? A nurse?
I was a nurse, and I was a hospice nurse for many years.
Oh,
and I went
okay.
to Alzheimer's, yeah.
Thank you. And I'm nodding like that because even before we started talking, you were saying you come from the heart and the head, Norm, and that you guys make a perfect couple. But I just got this sense of, is she a therapist? Is she, because you come definitely from heart.
Oh, okay.
So
When I
if
went to
you were,
college, it was psychology. So I had psychology, nursing.
Yep,
So they go together and they really worked well in Alzheimer's and hospice. So
perfect. Beautiful, beautiful. So I think one of the questions, leaping from that, when you're talking about places and do certain places resonate, do certain places, I know for myself, if I get to such and such a place later. So right now
Right.
for me, it is going back to Europe or starting in
Yeah.
Paris.
Yeah.
That said, so do you have some places that just hum? I call it a hum, where you can feel it in your bones, you feel it in your body. There are places in Massachusetts that I just have to sit here for a while because that's a home base to me. Do you have physical locations that each of you, either together and or separately, have that in visceral resonance that I have to be here and I just, everything about it speaks to me?
I don't know if I have it quite to that degree because I'm not quite as engaged with that level of vibration, but there's certain places that really resonate with me.
Right.
And primarily that's Eastern Europe because of my background. My mother was Hungarian, and for years she wanted to take me to Hungary, and I foolishly, did not do that. So I like Eastern Europe. It just calls me as an Ashkenazi Jew. These are my peeps. And so it's like that whole area around there really speaks to me. And I think Europe calls more people than most other places because as Americans, it's a 5-hour flight. And we always see pictures of Italy and France and Greece and everything. And, it has this romanticism about it that.
and it is.
It really is. I
It
mean,
is.
there is such a feeling. It's like we lived in the country of Albania, which I would bet a lot of people listening to this right now don't even know what Albania is.
Albania.
Yeah, and Albania is in the Balkan region. It's adjoining. It basically connects to Greece and it's across the ocean from Italy. But it's not. It's Europe, but it's not part of the European Union. And when you're in Albania, it just feels different than when you're in Greece, which you can get to in a 20-minute drive. There's such a history, and that's what really called me when we first started traveling. A little town outside of Rome called Tivoli, Italy, was the second place that we lived. And
Medieval. It was a medieval town.
yeah, the place that we lived was 500 years old. Heather.
It was a cave. It was
500 years old.
Like a cave with a little furnace inside,
Yeah.
and it was just charming. And
Oh, that's where you lived. The whole
Yeah,
place is
that's
no, you
called
lived
the
in a
cave.
cave.
It was a one-bedroom
apartment, yeah.
It was a one-bedroom apartment. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
a mid-bedroom apartment, but it was like a little cave. It was only window was in the door, and it was quite charming, but quite different. But it was so amazing to be in this town.
But check this out. So this town is 600 years older than Rome. This is
Oh
where
my.
This is where the
Wow.
people who founded Rome used to have their summer residences, and then they founded Rome. So we're talking several thousand years ago. And so the idea of being in a place that's older than the United States of America and to live in a town that's older than, over than the millennial generation, it just blew my mind, and it still continues to do so. It's like history. I love the archaeological museum because they really speak to me when I think about how long we as a civilization, as mankind, has been on the planet, and yet how far we've progressed, but yet how little we've progressed.
And I think the difference when we talk about me being more heart, he being more head, you can hear he's into history and that. I'm more into the heart part. So for me, one place that I found that I absolutely resonated with was Menorca, Spain. It's an island off of Spain. I think there are 3 islands: Ibiza, Menorca, Majorca.
Yeah.
It's Menorca, and they've done very little tourist modernization.
Commercialization.
So it's like about 20 years sort of behind other places. But for me, when I went to that island, I literally can be a very hyper person. My entire body became like a rag doll. And my energies just calmed and I just did not want to leave. It was just absolutely amazing. However, Menorca is quite expensive for housing and for food and because
Relative to our travel
relative to our-
schedule,
yes.
not to most Americans might consider
I-
a vacation
Yeah,
destination.
vacation there would be
Mm.
fine. If you've got the extra money and you want to spend a little bit more, but actually for us, because we have a certain budget that we try to stay within. And we were able to do it at that time. I am drawn more to people and culture. And I absolutely love Bali. The people in Bali were so, I call them, they're the most sincere, sweet people I've ever met. We meet people who I call saccharine. They're like pretend sweet. They do everything, they say everything, but you can just tell, or I can
It's
tell
right.
it's fake.
Right.
In Bali,
They're very spiritually centered.
yeah, and here in Malaysia and Thailand.
A lot of
And
Asia,
Vietnam,
a lot of Asia.
a lot of this area, they are genuinely kind, amazing, would do anything for you people. We live in right now, a large, 1-bedroom studio. And we have 2 people. We have our little maintenance guy who takes care of everything. And then we have our housekeeper who comes as often as we want her to.
And by the way, we don't typically have the benefit of having a housekeeper. This is a luxury for us to have this kind of service. Normally, we have to fend
We
for
had a few
ourselves.
luxuries lately. We
Yeah.
stayed in an amazing resort right over the ocean for almost 2 months also. We've been finding some really amazing.
Yeah.
But my point is, they are the most helpful, sweet,
Yeah.
kind, gentle people.
Yeah.
And so for me, being drawn to a certain country, that makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
And so we also love Croatia, both of us intermittently. We
Yeah.
are just love Croatia. But again, Croatia has all of a sudden over the last 10 to 15 years come onto everybody knows about it. And it's just becoming so touristy and so crowded and so much more expensive. So when we first started going there, it was very reasonable. And the last time we went, it was like triple what it was the first time. That's,
Okay.
yeah.
It looks beautiful. That'll be a bucket list at some point as well, because it
amazing.
looks
I recommend
extraordinary.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So I wanted to
Yeah.
spell a couple of notions that you addressed at the beginning. One is it's not too expensive and it's not too difficult. The age factor, understand, ladies and gentlemen who are listening to this from every age, you go at your own pace. You don't have to have a rapid pace and go from one
Right.
place to the next on a weekly basis. You know, we normally, when we first started, 6 weeks at a time, that was our goal. And the first book I wrote was called Traveling the World 6 Weeks at a Time, because 6 weeks gives you a nice long period to get integrated with the community, know your way around
And it gave us 2 places within a
within a
year
90-day period, right?
because of the Schengen.
Yeah, so everyone travels at their own pace, and I always tell people that you don't have to jump in with both feet like we did. For anyone who is looking to travel, keep your house, rent it out, keep it empty, whatever you want to do. You don't have to sell lock, stock, and barrel and say, we're out of here. You know, it's like, that's what we did. That's what worked for us because we had no attachments. We had no kids to worry about, no grandkids to worry about.
I have kids.
Yeah.
I just have to worry about them. They're older and they're very, very supportive.
Yeah. And as far as affordability, living in Southern California with an egregiously high lifestyle, I knew that it would be a struggle. I could survive, but that's what I'd be doing. I'd be surviving. And when we first came to Europe on that journey to Spain after we'd been together 2 months, we stayed at a really nice apartment in Barcelona, directly across
I
from.
gotta tell this, we walked into our room and there were these huge 10-foot shutters. And I opened them up and as I opened them, right smack in front of us, it's nighttime, is the familiar, how do you call it?
It's called the La Sagrada Familia. It's the Gaudi Cathedral. It's one of the most iconic buildings in the world. It's
Right in front of us, lit up. It was spectacular. And there we were,
And
paying almost nothing.
we paid $55 a night in that room. We went to Nice, France, paid $35. So that was like the genesis of a very, very, very brief conversation. Like,
Yeah, look what we
wow,
can do.
wow, look how cheap it was. And then 6 months later, when we went to Spain and Portugal,
We decided
For
for
6
6
weeks.
weeks to see if we could actually travel together.
yeah,
Because our first trip was a little bit difficult.
yeah,
And so that 6 weeks, when we were in Menorca, I knew I'm doing this. I've been wanting to do this my whole life and now I can see I can do this. Whether you come along with me or not, I'm doing this. And I was 100% in.
So from the affordability factor, again, unless you want to travel like a tourist and stay at the 4 and 5 star hotels and expect room services, as long as you are comfortable living in someone else's quarters and fending for yourself, which means getting your own food, making your own bed, doing all things like that, you can live far more affordably than you can probably in anywhere in the United States. I don't care where you live.
So we are not uncomfortable to share our budget, what we do, because we want people to know that they can do it. We are both on Social Security and we live on our Social Security. We don't touch our savings unless we absolutely have to.
Yeah.
And we've only had to hit it once, and that was because of the cruise.
Right.
Because we wanted to go ahead and take that long cruise across, so that when we went into our savings.
Yeah.
So we live on about 3,000 or less a month.
Yeah.
And we live comfortably. We do not suffer.
Just to kind of put things in perspective, when we first left, we had a monthly budget of $1,000 a month for lodging, just for lodging. There's a few times that we went a little bit over that, but we were usually able to stay under that. And then the real aha moment was when we went to Turkey, and then we went to Albania. And in Turkey, we spent like $500 a month. And in
Right, two
Albania,
bedroom, two bath, right directly across from Corfu. We could look out with the water, and Corfu was right across from us.
yeah, so we realized that, like, oh my goodness gracious, we don't have to worry about $1,000 a month. We can do it for almost half of that. And so when we came to Asia and realized it was cheap here too, I mean, we had a beautiful, beautiful place in Da Nang, Vietnam for basically like about 450,
About 450
including
with
utilities.
Yes.
3 blocks from the ocean. Anyway, the bottom line, guys, is that it's far more affordable than you would think it would be.
Yeah.
That's extraordinary, and that's always good to know. And so, in terms of some of the practicalities, are you still working? You have your website group and things like that, or how do you love to spend your days? Actually,
Good. It starts with coffee usually.
Starts with coffee for me. I'm a coffeeaholic, but I've been doing better. I've been doing ginger tea for quite some time. So I'm now breaking them up between, but for me, it starts with coffee, and I'm usually at a coffee shop and I'm writing. He's usually in the room. He likes to.
So I'm a gym rat, and that's been one of
Yes.
the biggest challenges is finding gyms everywhere, especially when we stay
Right.
short term. But fortunately, here in Kuala Lumpur, I found a really nice gym. So I hit the gym as often as I can, and I do write for several travel magazines, and that keeps me busy. And I have just different projects going on. I communicate with different people, and as a writer, I'm always having to put myself out there, trying to find new writing opportunities. Over the years, I've written like 3 or 4 books, and that has kind of kept me occupied. But right now, I've got what I call major projects on the line, and we've been here for almost 3 weeks. I went away for 5 days to the island of Bali for a motorcycle race, and she was here and took care of herself. And then, unfortunately, we both have had this little bug going on. But
I want to go back to that for a second. Something that's important too, because we travel now for 6 years together. We had to learn about the 24/7. I mean, especially through COVID, but everybody got to see how that's like. But we do it.
Right.
We're always 24/7. So we had to learn that it's okay to sometimes take a small jaunt here, a small jaunt there, so that we can have that time alone. It really helps us to appreciate each other more and just have some time alone to sort of calibrate, I guess is maybe the word I want. And it's good for us. It was so funny. One of our friends got a hold of me because she saw him write that he was in Bali. Is everything okay? And I said, of course it's okay. He's just gone off to a motorcycle race.
yeah,
And I think that maybe some people already do that, but that wasn't something that I was ever used to. I was used to always, being together, and it wasn't okay to do these individual. We don't do it often. Just
we're both very independent people, and we like our time alone, and we like our time together. And as she said, it's kind of been a transition, a little bit of give and take that has developed over the years.
Yeah.
Well, and that's beautiful. And I think any relationship, that's the best way to do it. They let each other breathe, right? And you don't have to be.
Excuse me. We talk to other people who do this, and they all talk about, oh my gosh, I just want to kill him sometimes.
Right.
You literally are together. We've done
it's too much with it for anybody. And right, I used to be tied at the hip before, but that said, we would take a separate vacation. Or, it's just you have to do that. And
never do
that's
that.
That's a whole nother show. But still that's great for relations. But one of the things that is very, very intriguing. So I'm about to spread my wings as a single person, as an older single person. I had my first walkabout when I was 20. So now I'm 61. So this is a whole different thing. And in my 20, I was eager to meet people. I kind of led with that. Came home and did the high school boyfriend marriage for a minute. That's part of a different story. But that said, I am going to be open to meet people, but I'm certainly not going out as a singles scene.
Right.
You two met, and then within 2 weeks, you started this whole thing. So you were getting to know each other on the road, if I'm hearing this right.
Mhm.
That is very interesting to me, how that just landed and came about. And did you, were there stepping stones, or did you literally meet
No.
and 2 weeks later you were out the door for a long period of time? Or were there stepping stones?
There were stepping stones, and there were
Right.
big obstacle stones that.
There was some
almost
cliffs,
crushed us.
there were some cliffs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we each have our version of what happened, and it's both the same, but it just comes from a different perspective. When we met, she was not looking for a relationship because she'd just come out of a divorce. I was an active dater, and
But were you online? That's the other
He was
question, because
prolific.
I'm still team organic. I'm still
He
team
was a
organic
prolific
versus.
dater.
we met online.
On Match.com, it was a candy store.
We met online.
Yeah.
Let's get this back. We met online, and there was an immediate connection. It was very
Right.
interesting, very intriguing for both of us. And so we did our trip to Europe 2 months later, and it didn't work out that well. And then we kind of went through a little transition where we're not quite together, not quite apart and everything. And then we had this, come to Jesus type of conversation, and we got together. So we had several months within California living together, and then we did the 6-week trip.
But we also
Through
did other
Europe.
little trips. We went to Catalina, we went to Death Valley. We were constantly doing stuff.
Right.
We were already starting to do our little travels together. So
Yeah.
it was like even within the first year we were traveling.
Yeah, the 6 weeks that we did, I was invited to speak in Madrid and participate. And so we took that little 3-day event and turned it into that 6 weeks exodus around the coast of Spain.
And that went really well.
Yeah, that went really well. And that's when the eyes were really open. And then, of course, we ended in Menorca, where she had that epiphany, like, yeah, I'm going to do this, whether you do it or not. And so there's been a lot of changes over the years, of course, in our relationship, trying to figure out how to live together as a couple. Because mind you, we don't have the benefit of a house with a backyard to go hang out in, or a basement to go hide out at. And so we're like together.
It's almost like we were forced into an isolation
Yeah.
capsule and literally had to work through. There were many, many times, and I think he would be okay with me saying this. He was a runner before. If the relationship wasn't easy, he was gone. And so there were many times he was gone.
Yeah.
If it wasn't physically, it was emotionally.
Yeah.
And I am much more persistent, and I saw something within us, and I really believed in it. And as long as I knew that he was willing to do the work, then we stayed together. Well, it has been in the last, I think, 6 months. We've been fine, but in the last 6 months, there has been, last 2 months more so even, there's been a huge shift, and we're in a completely different space now. But it took, I believe, 6 years to get here.
Yeah. Yeah. Traveling is not for the meek, because you do incur obstacles. You have to really be attuned to the logistics and the emotionality of it, because the two things you really have to practice is flexibility, because we as humans like to control all the things that we want to control, and you can't control a lot of things. And you have to be extraordinarily patient,
Fine.
because things don't always happen according to your agenda, regardless of who the you is, because you want something to happen in a certain way. Even something like the rains, like it rains every day here in the afternoon for a couple hours, and so we've had to learn to adjust our schedule around the rain.
But I think learning to travel with a partner, even on vacations, we know lots of people go on vacation to get away from their whatever, and they have a horrible vacation because they're fighting on the vacation.
Yeah.
You really, with anything, you have to work at this lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I would not trade it for it.
You as a single older woman traveling, there's a lot of single older women traveling, and I'll introduce you to a Facebook group specifically for older digital nomads, of which a good portion, probably the majority, are female. Most of them are not looking for a relationship. Most of them are not looking to call this a dating scene. But if you run into someone, they run into someone. A lot of times, women have a tendency to become friends much easier than older guys. Older guys are much more stoic, we're much more to ourselves. But, women of a certain age, of a certain history, of a certain, memories and everything, you all tend to gravitate together and you make wonderful friends along the way. And we have made amazing friends on the way, sometimes better friends than we had back in the United States, who we continue to run into country after country, including one who is just leaving today. This is the third country that we met her in after meeting her in Albania. And then she came to Da Nang, Vietnam, and she lived there.
And I think we should mention this too, because comes up in a lot. One of the things that we recognize is when you're gone this long, when you begin to do this, it changes your friendships back home.
You got to know that going in. You got to know that going in. Yeah.
It just changes it.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think changes it is that to begin with, there's an excitement. They want to hear about where you are, or you're able to still connect with whatever they're doing that you were aware of. But once you've been gone for a while,
Yeah.
you don't have the same things to talk about
Right.
anymore. It's changing.
Right.
And like for us, what we saw was we had to be very careful. We still do when we talk to people back home, because for us, we just came from Bali. We're going back over to Vietnam. We're going to take a train and we're going from Bangkok over to India.
It sounds braggadocio.
It sounds like,
Right.
but when you do this, it's no different than going from Texas to California. It's just
Right.
not. It's usually less expensive,
Yeah.
but they don't
The
understand
distances are
that.
comparable.
So you end up not having the same things to talk about
Right.
anymore. And they change.
Yeah.
But the really awesome part is you do meet amazing new people and you do make new relationships. And the friendships aren't gone, they're just completely different and they're not as intense as they used to be.
Yeah.
And that can be hard.
Yeah.
That can be hard.
Yeah. With family too.
Oh, and I can understand that because, even saying I'm leaving, it was hard to explain it to myself. You mean I'm not signing a lease and having a home to come back to? No. But
Yeah.
then to voice that to most people, it doesn't, you have to step out of logic, it feels like. So help me
Yeah.
with that. It feels like every piece of this, which is bigger than me, is coming from a whole different space, which is not a logical brain. That
And-
said, there's still some practicalities, but go ahead.
And,
Yeah.
and Heather, you have to be totally impervious to the opinions of other people, because other
Right.
people, so many times in our life, and a lot of people are more bad at this than others, but we always expect other people to agree with what we do or approve of what we do, and you can't live with that expectation. There are people who might think you're crazy. There are people who think we're crazy. Some people admire the hell out of us because we're bold and we're brave and we're this and we're that,
Right.
but some people
But it's interesting
are
because
comfortable with their houses back there in Ohio, and that to them is their nirvana, not to us. Go ahead.
as I say, it's interesting because we meet a lot of people who say that a lot of their friends thought they were crazy. Honestly, we never had that much. Most people were incredibly supportive and incredibly, and still are,
Yeah.
how amazing it is. There's
Yeah.
maybe 2%.
Yeah,
We've ran into a couple people who
Yeah.
have said, even like one gentleman we met in Vietnam, he said, well, I think it's amazing what you do, but there's no way I could ever do that.
Yeah, yeah.
It just is completely foreign to me. So he couldn't understand it, but he was able to say, I'm glad you guys are liking it. I don't know that we've read anybody who said, I think you're nuts.
I think most people, especially older people who are parents and especially grandparents, get the most pushback from their kids and their grandkids. What do you mean you're going across?
Oh.
You're going to
Yes.
Europe,
Yeah.
what about Christmas? What about Johnny's Day? And so you have to realize that you're not going to necessarily be there for all the family events or for all baptisms and all the various things like that. And you have to be able to let go of any potential guilt that you might have about quote unquote abandoning your family. You're not. You're just
Right.
growing yourself.
And you can't do it if you're not comfortable with it.
Right.
So, for me, I did not have grandchildren when I left. My son, who said he would never get married, he and his girlfriend came to Croatia to spend a couple weeks with us. They went on to get married and immediately had a baby, and she had 3 children. So now I have 4 grandchildren, and my little one that was born is now almost 4 years old in December. And so I have been able to go back and visit with him, and we do FaceTime constantly, and he lights up. He knows who I am. He knows. And so there's a connection, but they never, ever would make us feel bad, ever. They are so incredibly supportive of our travel. So we're
Well, this is perfect because First of all, people who know me know that I'm half out the door, I mean, that it's been an interesting thing. I'm a homebody with that nest, but I'll be down the road also. So it has been quite supportive. And to the extent that I had to be the one to get more and more comfortable saying, yeah, I'm doing this thing and I still don't even know what it looks like. I know where my plane ticket is, and then the
Yeah.
rest,
Where?
it's Paris.
Paris.
That's where I just wanted to start in Paris and have a cafe and begin that way. And then the rest will continue. And more people that I know over there saying, "Oh, yeah, that would be great to see you here," and the rest will
Present stuff.
follow.
Yeah.
Right. But still, yes, the logistics of, well, when are you coming back? Are you not coming back? I don't think so. I don't know
Good.
yet. And I
Good
don't
for
have
you.
to know right now.
No.
And that's what
Um,
we
so it's been
know.
very supportive. Do they,
Yeah.
some think I'm crazy? Probably. But for the
Yeah.
most part, the real cheerleaders immediately can feel it and say,
Yeah.
oh my God, yes. And actually,
Good for you.
I will say, and I'll put it out there, I have appreciated my earth angels who I kind of sheepishly mention it. They get all goosebumps and say, yeah, before I could own it for myself. So
Right.
that's why I
Listen,
mean, it's bigger
Gloria.
than me because other people have said, yeah, that feels really good. Really? Are you sure? Yeah, you're going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, you
Okay.
are.
A lot of people love the romanticism of doing what you're doing, and they would like to do it themselves, but they know damn well that they can't or they won't. So they're
Right.
supportive of you to be bold
Right.
enough to consider it and to, in fact, act upon it.
And
Right.
be aware that as you begin to do this, you will run into things that are scary, that feel overwhelming. And there may be moments where you go, what have I done? I mean, there may be those moments.
Yeah.
But
Right.
recognize they're just moments.
Yeah.
Right.
Look at the moments that outweigh them, and then just take that and just sit in it for a minute. Go, okay, I got this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
It's perfect.
it's so fruitful and so amazing. And I wish that we could encourage everybody to, whatever their dream is, whether it's traveling, to follow your dream and not allow other people to influence you, and just be persistent and perseverant in what you want to do in your own heart.
I think that's a beautiful way of, we're going to come up to an hour pretty soon. So bringing it forward for people to step out of fear spaces, to step
Yeah.
into something new. And like you were saying earlier, you don't have to say all of a sudden, I'm ditching my life and I'm just going to go. It can be in smaller steps. And I have said often on the show, it could be a different restaurant down the block. Do something a little bit outside of your own
Yes.
comfort zone.
Yeah.
Explore a new town or get in the car or do what you can for your moment. And it can be a leap across the world. And maybe that leap is for a week. Take a
Right.
weekend, take a vacation. There's still plenty of people that they won't allow themselves a moment to even have vacation or take your vacation time. Right. Now, I don't want to, you have a number of resources and other groups with resources, and you mentioned the visas and stuff. One of the things, and it kind of touches base with millennials, the notion of residency or the notion of things trying to keep up with, I'll say, the bureaucracies that can't quite keep up with people who have sold their house and they're on the road. And I remember having a conversation with, say, car insurance. Well, what do you tell the people? Because there are thousands of people who have sold the house and now they're doing van life. How do you do that? And she said, we have to tell them to say that you're living somewhere else. Like this whole notion of you can't, that at least for now, how do you insure a car without that residency here in the States? Right.
Yeah.
It's just, are you finding that, I'll say, the quote unquote bureaucracies can keep up with nomadic lifestyle? Or how are you finding these things? And I know every country will have its own thing, but as an American, it seems to be kind of interesting.
As the internet has grown over the last several decades, and especially post-COVID, when
Right.
people realized that they could work everywhere or anywhere, the world has become so much more digital to the point of where physical residency is not a deterrent anymore.
Right.
We have what they call a virtual mailbox. And for all intent and purposes, that is our address. It is a physical location. It is a building with a unit. It's not a PO box. And that is our address for the IRS and for our credit cards And our credit card statements, if in fact they were physically mailed, which they're not, because everything is digital today. So everything is done online. And so if something physically is mailed to that virtual mailbox, we get a copy of it via PDF, so we can see exactly what it is. The only problem that we had was with banks.
Right.
We used that virtual mailbox, I did, for my bank for quite some time. And then Wells Fargo said, we can't have a virtual mailbox, we need a physical home. So
Right.
that is something that is happening right now as we
Changes.
speak.
I was gonna say two things. That was easy for us because we went ahead and used my children's address.
Right,
To be able to have
Right.
our statement so that we have a statement there.
right.
But I wanted to share just one little piece about how well this virtual mailbox can work. So we were insured through Kaiser Permanente, which is out of California. And when I was for medical, I've had a couple things at hospitals where we just pay out of cash. It's just so cheap. The hospital was 104 one place and then 204 the other place for like paramedics, IVs, EKGs, everything, where it would have been 20,000 in the States. But in Mexico, because it's right outside of the United States, they know you're American, so they jack the prices. So I had an incident in the emergency room that was $800. I get a hold of my insurance company and they say, oh, just fill out the form and mail it in. I said, I'm in Mexico, I can't do that. Oh, well, if you wait another week, we're gonna have it online, you can fill out the form online. So I filled the form out online, sent the form in with the pictures that they had requested. They wrote a check. They sent the check to my virtual mailbox. My virtual mailbox scanned the check, both sides, sent it to me. I took a picture of it. I sent it back to my bank and it was deposited. That's how well all of this can work when you learn how to do it.
Yeah, it's about understanding the rules of the game and
It's a process of
Yeah.
learning.
yeah, like physicality and having a physical address is not a deterrent. You know, you just have to learn the shortcuts to do it better.
Beautiful. Beautiful. What other last nuggets do each of you have for us, for the audience listening right now?
You know,
And we're on video, so this is a beautiful thing. But yes, for the
Yeah.
lasting conversations, what else would you like to share?
you know, when we were in Menorca back in 2018, we were sitting by the waterfront there, and she said, I'm going to do this. I would like you to do it with me, but I'm going to do it anyway. And I remember thinking to myself, you know, if I don't do this now, I think I was 64. If I don't do this now, and 10 years from now, I suddenly had that realization that 10 years earlier, I could have changed my life, but instead I stayed and went back to whatever my life was going to be. Who knows what that would have been.
Right.
I would have been forever remorseful. And I didn't, I've lived with regret. We all live with regret. We make mistakes, things we wanted to do differently. And so I think the biggest takeaway that I can offer people is don't let fear stop you from pushing into the unknown. And don't live with the regret of what could have been, because what could have been is extraordinary if you open yourself up to what the universe provides. And we both are, as you can imagine, very spiritual. We just kind of let things happen and we control what we can, and we've learned to adapt to the other things that are outside of our control. And that would be my takeaway, is just do it. Just like the Nike slogan, just do it. You
Yeah.
need some words, baby?
I usually have words. I think I'm tired. I think that, again, for me, it's always much bigger than the travel, because that's just who I am. So if you have a dream to travel, if you have a dream to do anything, you have to follow your dream. And it always comes down to either love or fear. Are you coming from fear, or are you coming from love? And anything that's going to hold you back, I just say, just take one step, just one baby step. Take that step, find whatever it is that brings you joy, brings you bliss, and follow that step. And then the next one will show up, and the next one will show up. But you have to take the first step. So you take the first step and you go, oh, wow. And then something feels good this way. Oh, I think I'm going to do this and follow this one, and then follow the next one. And if it doesn't bring you joy, then maybe that's not the direction you want to be going. So that's how we do our travel. You know, do you want to go here? That doesn't really resonate with me. And so we both have to be on the same page now of where we're going. It has to be mutual. And if it doesn't resonate with one of us, that may change later. But in that moment, that may not be what we do at that moment.
The good news is, for anyone who is contemplating making a move like this, you have an enormous support network out there.
Yes.
There are Facebook groups and there's all kinds of organizations that are designed to support the nomad community of every age. And when we go to a new city, I'll usually go on the Facebook expat site for that city. And I'll just kind of pay attention to what's going on and I'll seek out advice as we need to. So you are not alone. Even if you travel alone, far from it, you are not alone. You've got a big, big support network that is
Yeah,
visible
always
to you.
there.
Yeah.
Always there. Yeah.
Extraordinary. This is just, it's amazing. And I know there are so many people currently do it or thinking about it or, and
More
just
and more
say
every
yes.
day. More and more every day.
It is. It is.
And we hear so
So,
many people say
yeah.
they want to do it. Oh, I really want to do what you're doing, or oh, you're so lucky. It's not luck. There is maybe an element of luck in there somewhere, but it is work. You have to do it. You have to do it. You have to make the decisions. You have to make it, create it. You have to.
Exactly. And it's just funny. I always say, now, where can people find you? Now that's kind of almost a trick question because you're going to be a little bit of everywhere, but online or through your work. Do you have websites? Do you have a community group, a Substack, anything like that?
Actually, I do have a Substack. Travelyounger.com is our main website that holds our blogs. I'm a pretty consistent blogger on Facebook, so you can look it up under my name or under Travel Younger group. It's pretty active and everything. And, you know, Kat and
I've never been super media. I don't do the Instagrams and I don't really post because he posts so much. So if I post it just like double, so he does most of the post. So I'm not usually as active.
And I'll make the same offer to you as I make to anyone who's watching or listening to this. If you need any help, if you have any questions, we have had countless video calls over the years with someone who just wanted to pick our brains. And we've met with people who have followed us for years who've never communicated with us. So,
and they get a hold of us and say, we're in the same place you are. Can we meet up with you? And they're so excited.
yeah.
And we didn't even know they were following us because a lot of people, we don't push the subscribe or follow button. It's not a big deal for us.
Yeah.
This is more for us just sharing.
Yes.
And so when they're following, but we don't even know they're there.
It's like the RV community. You know, if I was in the United States in an RV,
Yeah.
I know there'd be thousands of people that I could call or count on for help or questions or anything. It's the same thing, just on a global scale.
It absolutely is. And Yulia, who was one of my guests, she did van life for a while, and I could see her progression. Exactly. There's this beautiful community. So when you want your silent moments to yourself, or just that open road or that open space.
Yeah.
And then there are times that you need community, you need nurture, you need to cook together, you need to share, or I love it. I love the different opportunities. And I love that we're in a time and space that it's open to those possibilities. Yes, Kathleen.
Yeah, well, that's okay. You said we're getting close on time, so I'm fine. It wasn't important.
Don't want to push your envelope on attention.
Oh, we're good.
Sorry.
No, it's did you have one more thing?
I was going to talk about, I guess not. It's gone.
Okay. Well, we'll just have to continue the conversation, and maybe I'll be on a mountain somewhere, and we will do this again. And the one last thing I will say is, again, with the millennials or the younger generation, with the technologies, and you're mentioning about connections, so that we know that this is possible, where we can feel as close to somebody. There's nothing like a physical hug and a touch and a cup of coffee or something. Yet those babies know you as a grandmother. You know, the marriages, my son and his wife, they met together with Cirque du Soleil, and now they're still doing their thing separately, but they are so lovingly present with each other, and they take care of each other even though they're 1,000 miles away. And I think I appreciate being shown, oh, there is a different way now, and it's not that complicated.
And
there's no normal anymore. There's no normal in the world.
Right.
What's normal?
I want to say this.
I love it. What's normal? We can end with that. Go ahead. Yes.
My daughter and I are so close. And if it wasn't for FaceTime, but with FaceTime, when we see each other's faces, we don't have to. We're there. We're hugging each other.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm not going to see her for at least 2 years this time because of being over here and then going back. Right. But the FaceTime makes if we didn't have this, I told him not long ago, if we didn't have FaceTime, this would have been so much more difficult. So much more difficult to be away from family.
Right.
But FaceTime makes it so possible. We could talk to people we've met. I could talk to my nieces or my nephews. It's right there. It's easy.
Yep. I love it. It's all right here. So,
Lovely chatting with you.
oh
Absolutely.
my gosh, it's been so fun. Kathleen Plumley and Norm Bour, thank you, thank you, thank you. And
luck
thanks
on
for
your journey.
oh, thank you so much. And thanks for listening, everybody. Please be sure to like, follow, review, and share this and all the other shows. This is Heather with Lasting Conversations. We get to the heart of everything.